Hey there, guys, and thank you for tuning back into my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk about the shoulder joint and shoulder pain in relation to the bench press and what I've learnt from my time, benching and training. So, the shoulder joint, similar to the hip joint, is capable of flexion, extension, adduction, abduction, circumduction, but unlike the hip joint, it doesn't really have a strong support, I'm going to say structure. Like the ball and socket joint of the hip really does sit quite far into the joint itself compared to the shoulder, which some people say is a little bit more like a cup and saucer. Because the shoulder joint isn't as stable in that regard, it's also capable of a greater range of movement, and with that greater range of movement come more complications. So my shoulder sort of this week hadn't felt the best, and had flared up the week before, doing an ab exercise. I was just using an ab wheel, so I was rolling all the way out, extending my arms quite far in front of me, keeping my head in between my arms, and that was compressing and impinging my shoulder. And I've carried that niggle over to my current training session in this week, and it just hasn't gone to plan. So typically when I get niggles and pains in my shoulders, I look back at the previous 4 to 6 weeks worth of training, because normally that's where the problem has occurred. Rarely for me is it a one-off injury or situation, unlike my calf where I tore it. So anything that's wear and tear, I just look, 4 to 6 weeks prior and see what happened. In the past 4 to 6 weeks, we've obviously had lockdown. I've changed my style of training. So instead of doing my typical 2 sets of feet up bench press, I've now been doing a lot more, plus the 100 reps at 100 kilos, just trying to get the volume in. And with a feet up bench, your chest is lower because, it's not an arched bench. My chest isn't high, so feet out, bench. Chest is lower, so that means the bar's coming down lower. If the bar comes down lower, my shoulders have to go into extension further, so the humerus is dropping further down past where it usually does. This rotation of the shoulder, for me, I find quite taxing on the body, and I'm just not recovering from it. So has it worked, well in the past? Yes. I've just done a little bit too much volume of late. However, the mass and strength I've gained has been great. So just like anything, you've got to, problem solve, think around how you can get from point A to point B, and that's the point of periodization. So what I do now, I'm going to cut back my paused feet up bench, just to 1 set a week. And my mindset, like my point of view, from a psychological point of view, it's great to see that your weights haven't utterly, dropped. And, when people eradicate a whole exercise just because they're sore, in the back of their mind, they're wondering, am I still as strong? How am I going to go when I go back to this movement? Will I still be as, strong or functional in it? For me, I just drop it down to 1 set a week, so I don't have that ever playing on my mind. However, training shoulders, back, triceps, arms in general, I will choose movements that obviously don't feel restricting or tight or painful on my shoulders. So I can still allow my bench press to increase, over time, or at least hold strength, especially in the off season, without doing further damage to my body. And for me personally, 1 set, even if things are slightly painful, I can easily recover from. Might take me a week or 2 longer, but I'm far more consistent, and my headspace around the lift is a lot clearer. There's no self-doubt. I don't have to worry about, how the weight's going to feel when I get back to it. Other factors that are obviously going to help recovery are going to be resting more, so having more days off in between sessions. I was benching 2 to 3 times a week, so I'm going to drop that down to 1 heavy day, 1 light day. Need to get a little bit more sleep and need to improve my nutrition a little bit, especially since lockdown, because the other big factor is work. I've gone back into the security industry and I have 12-hour shifts. So when you're standing up for 12 hours a day and continuously walking around, it's going to fatigue your body as a whole, and that just saps your ability to recover. That's probably my plan of attack moving forward. And then I've obviously started squatting again because my calf has healed enough. Fitness has gone up because I'm able to run. So I'm really happy in that regard. But when it comes to shoulders, you try not let anything progress to the point of utter pain before you start making changes to your training, because in my opinion, you've sort of left it too light. Working to the point where you get a niggle, not a problem, but you then need to, assess the situation and, look back upon your training and see what variables you've changed. So for me, it was my workload and frequency. I've upped them dramatically. Even if it is a lower intensity, there's still far more sets and volume, especially at 100 kilos. And that's taking a toll on my body versus I look at my competition prep, and I was only doing 2 sets of feet up bench maybe twice a week. So it was only 4 sets versus I don't know how many up-down sets I'm doing at the moment. So yeah, that's where my problem is laying at this point in time. But being able to just look at the previous 4 to 6 weeks and see how that has changed compared to a previous, competition block, you get ideas as to what will and won't work and, what will cause overtraining within a certain muscle group, as well as what's going to be a more, systemic overall, tax on the body. So you can apply this to squats, you could apply it to deadlifts. You just need a general program that you can follow for a couple of weeks. Make sure your technique and form is on point and the rest of it. And as long as you're moving well and pain-free, you can sort of use that as your judging guide. And then when you start adding in a whole lot of other variables, you start getting pains and aches, 4 to 6 weeks later, you can sort of look back and just see the exercises that you've incorporated and how they have affected you individually. Some work really well because it may only be a minor change. Others can be quite drastic. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Otherwise, have a great day.